Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are tackling, well, the most complex thing in the known universe, the human brain.
Mm,
It's this biological computer, inside your skull, and it manages everything, absolutely everything, from a single touch to your entire sense of self.
it's the engine that literally generates our reality.
Right.
But for all we know, the core mystery is still there.
Right.
We understand individual brain cells, the neurons, in incredible detail. But how millions of them cooperate, how they form these ensembles to make a single thought, that's still largely unsolved.
And that is our mission for this deep dive. We are going straight into that enigma.
Uh-huh.
We'll start with the physical architecture, then look at how we measure it, and finally we'll get into the really profound stuff memories, spirituality, and even the potent hallucinogens our own brains can produce.
So let's get into it.
Okay, let's start with the basic hardware, the engine of thought. It's mostly made of two types of cells, right? Neurons and glial cells.
Yeah, glial. The glial cells are kind of the support crew. They cling up, provide structure, insulate the wiring.
But the neurons are the stars of the show.
They're the communicators.
Yeah.
They're built to send signals over, incredibly long distances relative to their size.
And the numbers here are they're staggering.
They really are. If you just look at the cerebral cortex, that's for higher order stuff like planning. You've got, say, 14 to 16 billion neurons.
Okay, that's a lot.
But then, get this. You look at the cerebellum, a much smaller area for fine-tuning movement, and it holds an astonishing 55 to 70 billion neurons.
Wow. So the density is completely different.
Completely. It really makes you question where intelligence actually resides.
And the wiring for all this communication, there's a great analogy in the source material. A signal travels down a fiber called an axon.
Hmm.
If you blew up a single neuron's body to the size of a person, its axon cable would be a few centimeters thick, but it would stretch for over a kilometer.
It's just a mind-boggling scale of internal infrastructure.
And at the end of that cable,
You have the synapse. That's the key functional element. It's the tiny gap where one neuron talks to the next. And the human brain has an estimated 100 trillion of them.
100 trillion. And they aren't all the same, are they?
Not at all. Some are excitatory, they say go. Others are inhibitory, they say stop.
And the crucial part is that they're modifiable.
Exactly. This is so important. It's called activity-dependent modification. The more you use a connection, the stronger it gets. And this is, widely accepted as the physical basis for learning and memory.
So every time you learn something new, you are literally, physically rewiring your own brain.
You are.
Okay, so with this incredible density, 100 trillion connections being modified constantly,
No.
that must take a ton of energy.
Oh, a ridiculous amount, an exorbitant amount. If you look at most vertebrates, their brain uses maybe, 2 to 8% of their total energy budget?
Not in humans.
No. In primates, and especially us, the brain consumes 20 to 25% of your total energy.
Just to keep the lights on, even when you're resting.
That's right. It's a severe metabolic demand.
Which poses this huge evolutionary question you have to ask yourself, why? Why would evolution build an organ that is so incredibly expensive to run?
It must mean the survival advantage of being smarter, of being able to plan, to communicate, to solve problems, was so huge that it outweighed the cost of feeding this energy hawk.
It was worth a quarter of everything we eat.
Literally.
So how do we measure all this activity? This brings us to EEG, electroencephalography.
Right, EEG is a foundational tool. It's not invasive, it just detects the electrical fields from huge groups of neurons firing in sync.
And it's measuring a specific type of signal, isn't it?
It is. It's measuring the postsynaptic potential. So it's not the main firing spike, the action potential. It's more like the cumulative input signals arriving at the pyramidal neurons in the neocortex.
Wait, okay, why the input signal? Why not the big zap of the neuron firing?
That's a great question. The input signals, the postsynaptic potentials, they're slower, they last longer, and they spread out over a wider area.
Ah, so they're easier to pick up from the scalp.
Much easier. The actual action potentials are so fast,
Mm-hmm.
and their fields can cancel each other out by the time they reach the electrodes. So you get a clearer, if broader picture of large-scale activity.
And one of the huge advantages of EEG is speed.
Oh, absolutely. It has incredible temporal resolution. We're talking milliseconds. If you want to track the actual speed of thought, EEG is far superior to something like fMRI or a PET scan.
But, and this is but for anyone trying to get a full picture, it has some major limitations.
Big ones.
First, the spatial resolution is pretty poor. It can't tell you exactly where in the brain something is happening.
Right, the skull just smears the signal too much.
Hmm.
Second, there's the depth problem. EEG is terrible at measuring anything below the cortex.
So all those deep, crucial structures like the hippocampus or the
Are
thalamus.
pretty much invisible to it. Their signals just don't make it to the surface.
And then there's the big one, the mathematical one.
The inverse problem. Yeah. It's basically a law of physics. It is mathematically impossible to look at an EEG signal on the scalp and reconstruct a single unique source for it inside the brain. You can make an educated guess, but you can't be certain.
It's like hearing a band playing inside a concrete bunker.
That's a great way to put it. You can tell the rhythm for sure. You can identify the different frequency bands, delta for deep sleep, alpha for relaxed states, beta and gamma when you're really engaged. But you can't pinpoint exactly where the drummer is standing.
Okay, so let's shift from electrical rhythms to the brain's internal pharmacy.
Oh, yes.
Because this is where the science gets really, really strange. The idea that the brain produces its own powerful hallucinogen, DMT, or dimethyltryptamine.
This whole conversation really exploded with Rick Strassman's work back in the 90s.
Right.
His hypothesis was that the pineal gland, this tiny little gland in the center of the brain, was producing DMT and releasing it during, dreams, birth, and especially near-death experiences.
And that idea just took hold. The spirit molecule from the seat of the soul, it's everywhere in popular culture.
It is. But the new mechanistic research, particularly from Jimo Borjigin's lab, is painting a much more complex picture. They wanted to know how the brain actually makes DMT.
And they found the tools for the job. Two enzymes, right, INMT and AADC.
Exactly. Think of them as the little molecular workers that build DMT. And the question was, where are these workers located?
And they weren't just in the pineal gland.
Not at all. They were kind of everywhere. They found neurons with both enzymes in the neocortex and the hippocampus, places critical for memory and high-level thought. This suggests DMT production is widespread, not centralized.
And this is where it gets wild. The timing of the release seems to connect back to that old folklore.
It really does. Borjigin's team found that in rats, DMT levels spiked dramatically after an induced cardiac arrest.
A huge spike. And where was it most pronounced?
In the visual cortex.
Mm-hmm.
Now think about that. If you connect that to the narratives of near-death experiences, the tunnels of light, the life review, you have to wonder, is this endogenous DMT release the physical mechanism for those profound visions?
It's a powerful idea, but here's the kicker. The counter-evidence they found about the pineal gland.
This was the big surprise. They ran the experiment on rats that had their pineal glands surgically removed, and it made absolutely no difference. The DMT levels in the cortex still spiked just as high.
Wow. So the pineal gland is not the major source.
It strongly suggests it's not. The brain itself widely is generating this chemical at the moment life ends.
Okay, so let's pivot here. We have this high-energy machine eating a quarter of your calories, capable of 100 trillion connections, and it floods itself with psychedelics when it dies. What if ancient traditions found a way to consciously control or even replicate those extreme internal states?
That is the philosophical bridge. This is where you get into the yogic traditions and their goal of achieving nothingness or emptiness.
Which is the total opposite of how most of us live. We're always pursuing fullness.
Precisely. More money, more knowledge, more experiences. But fullness is, by definition, always partial. There's always room for more.
Right.
But emptiness, they say, is always total. You can't achieve it in installments. And the key method is something they call becoming dispossessed.
And when you hear that word, you think of giving away all your stuff.
But it's much more subtle. It's not about not having things. It's about not being possessed by them.
So you can have money, but the money doesn't own your fear.
Exactly. You can be in a relationship, but it doesn't own your emotional state. It's a conscious process of cutting the internal threads of ownership, an internal lockdown.
It's a slow, deliberate climb, which is contrasted with people who just sort of stumble into a big experience.
Yeah, you see that. Someone has a sudden windfall or
Yeah.
chemically induced vision. If they haven't built the internal structure, the staircase, so to speak, to hold that new state,
They can't sustain it.
they collapse. And they're often worse off than before. The wisdom tradition says you have to build that staircase step by step so there is no falling down.
And this internal work often focuses on the neuroendocrine system, specifically the third eye. The yogic texts describe two ways to open it. One is by creating a total internal vacuum.
This path is about consciously burning everything inside, every thought, every emotion, every memory, until there's just nothing, a clean slate.
And the pressure from the outside just pops it open.
That's the idea. The other method is the complete inverse, building immense internal pressure
How does that work?
through total containment, not letting a single thought, word, or emotion escape. You hold it all inside, building this incredible pressure until the door just bursts open from within.
And this is where the spiritual practice circles right back to biology and chemistry.
It does. This maturation, sometimes called post-genital puberty, involves advanced practices like Kikari Mudra
An advanced tongue technique.
that directly stimulates the hypothalamus and the pineal gland. And this is all said to culminate in the secretion of something called somarasa, or amrita,
An immortal time essence.
the ultimate internal chemical reward. And that name, soma, directly connects to the ancient Vedic ritual drink, the drink that was used to find the gods to achieve immortality.
The identity of which is still debated, right? It could have been a mushroom or some other plant.
It could have been. We don't know for sure. But the fact that the highest yogic achievement is described as creating an internal chemical with that same name, it suggests a deep, ancient understanding that consciousness and chemistry are one integrated system.
So let's bring this all together. We've gone from the brain's physical architecture, 100 trillion connections, a quarter of our energy budget, to the limits of how we measure it with EEG.
And we've seen the shocking reality of its own internal psychedelics, DMT, spiking at the moment of cardiac arrest. We connected that intense chemistry to these ancient, subtle paths of transformation.
All culminating in this paradoxical quest for a state of complete nothingness in order to achieve a state of total consciousness. So the question we want to leave you with, which builds on all this, on the metabolic cost and the internal chemistry, is this. If the brain's highest spiritual maturation results in the secretion of amrita, this immortal time essence, what conscious act of becoming dispossessed will you choose today that might unlock your own profound inner chemistry? What are you holding on to that's stopping your own engine from reaching its highest potential?